as a part of my journey, as a part of my experiences, I genuinely step out and like I'm thinking like, okay, God, who's this? Like, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
So I've had a couple of experiences believing that a guy was husband.
We are having our very first episode of the While I'm Waiting podcast.
Yay!
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Okay.
So we do need to let our audience know a couple things.
Okay.
Housekeeping.
Let's do it. Let's run it.
We both believe in God.
Yes, 1,000%. Can we define God?
Wow. Okay.
Oh
no.
Yep.
Go ahead. All right.
Yeah. I think that's important. God, the Alpha, the Omega, the God who responds and answers by fire. That God.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
People have different definitions for God.
Because I don't think I would, because that was a lot.
I want to be clear.
I think of God more as the creator.
Absolutely.
The, I guess the divine, I tend to think of him in a more positive light, but he can destroy. He can do,
Oh, for sure.
Because let's not even talk about Old Testament God.
I was referencing.
He had
Old
anger
Testament God.
management issues. Yeah,
definitely.
But what I was getting at was that, yeah, we believe in God and we're gonna have those kind of conversations, but this is not for the Bible thumpers.
No,
this is not for the ones who are going to, because my shirts dip low,
and my skirts itch high.
And and it's just what it is. Like I'm not gonna say no. I'm just gonna say that, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Okay.
Also, I'm not gonna necessarily quote scriptures because I don't memorize them that way.
I cannot make you the same promise. However, there's no judgment. It's all love.
Yeah, I just think that for me, I tend to paraphrase. I tend to give you the general, this is where we're going with it kind of thing. But this is about real candid conversations about the waiting season. So defining the waiting season, this is, you have a goal, a promise, something you are working toward that is yours by divine right. Abundance is yours by divine right, right? So there's that. And then there's the time until you get to it.
Yeah.
That in between is the waiting season. This season is the obstacle course.
Okay.
It is designed to help you learn about who you are. It is designed to stretch you, to grow you, to break you, to restore you, to heal you so that you are prepared for what you're going to get. Yep. So I use the analogy of winning the lotto.
Okay.
If you don't know how to manage money, but you happen to win the lotto, you have bad credit, you don't have boundaries, so you can't tell people no, you're a people pleaser, so you have never been good with saving or doing the right thing with your money. You probably squander on very materialistic things. Chances are, if you get $1 million, you're about to blow it, right? But had you had that same opportunity to win a $1 million lottery, and you know what it's like to be in debt, to rebuild your credit, to say no to people, to invest in liabilities over assets, to invest, chances are you are better equipped for that $1 million and can turn that into double, triple, quadruple that
1,000%.
amount. The waiting season, guys.
1,000%.
I think we confuse it because we think the waiting season is about what we're working toward, but it's really about you.
Yeah.
So, for
personal development.
So for our inaugural episode, we are talking about something that people tend to wait on quite a lot, whether they admit that they're waiting on it or not. It is partnership, relationship.
Oh, the good stuff.
Lord, I'm waiting on my husband. Lord, I'm a good dude. Where my wife at? All of that.
All that stuff. All the good stuff. The juice.
It's the juice. So we're going to talk about the waiting season. when you're waiting for bae, and with that,
Husband.
husband,
Waiting on husband. When you're waiting on husband and he acting like he don't know he husband.
or
Like,
yeah,
he
no,
get the
that
memo.
yeah, he could, or maybe he just doesn't really know that he's husband.
Maybe he really doesn't know that he's husband, or
But-
maybe you're mistaken about whether or not he's husband.
Yeah. So, have you ever had a time where you thought, or where you thought?
I'm really afraid of this question. I see where it's going.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did not have time to brace myself. Go for it. All right.
Yeah.
Have I ever what?
Had a time where you thought you had husband. What was that like?
Have I ever had a time where I thought I had husband? 1000%.
And how did you know that? Well, why do you think he was husband? And not like husband because you're choosing him, but because you think God told you that was who you were supposed to be with.
I actually, admittedly, have had a few experiences.
Wow, God has sent you multiple husbands.
Listen, I'm a woman of faith. I'm a woman of faith. I believe. Like I go to God and I say, God, blah, 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 and I genuinely, as a part of my journey, as a part of my experiences, I genuinely step out and like, I'm thinking like, okay, God, who's this? Like, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
So I've had a couple of experiences, believing that a guy was husband. Yes. So,
because you're not married now, I'm assuming that.
I'm not, but hey.
So I'm assuming that was inaccurate, that assumption that they were going to be husband, huh?
Mm.
How did you handle that? What did you learn from that?
I can tell you. Let me tell you a story.
Yep. I love a good story time. Go ahead.
Who doesn't enjoy a good story? All right.
Especially when she tells it. I just want y'all to know.
Listen.
You're going to watch this, right? And I am easily embarrassed all the time. Like, I'm embarrassed by other people being embarrassed or not being embarrassed enough. So when she tells me stories, the way I cringe inside, and then I say to her, like, are you serious? And she's just like, wait, what's the problem? And I was like, I cringe a second time. But go ahead, tell your story.
Yeah,
tell your story.
I just too much. I have no embarrassment here. I just, man, like I said, it's a couple, but so there was this one time years ago, like years ago, I like, when I say I just knew that this guy was my husband. And I prayed, like I went before God, like I did everything. Like I went to like, what do you call those? Like, like sometimes they have like prayer meetings and all of that. I went to the prayer meeting. I laid prostrate before God. I spoke in tongues. I cried.
You didn't.
I did the whole, like, I declared, I decreed. I did all of it. All of it. Got up from there thinking I'm hearing, yep, like he's it. That's it. Girl. Months later, it may have been months, like a couple of 3 months later, I'm not sure, but he did. Like I had to watch him walk down the aisle to marry someone else. It was devastating.
Okay, see, these are one of those moments where I feel that for you, because like, what?
But let me tell you this though, like, and it was devastating. Make no mistake.
Oh my God.
Because like I felt like I did all the right things. I was like, I prayed, I sought counsel, I did all that stuff, and I tried to do everything according to the word of God, as I understood it, in that season. And it was just like, yo, like, how did I get here? My thought process was, I was devastated, like 1000% devastated. And I had a friend of mine. She was staying with me at the time. She didn't even want me to go to the wedding. Matter of fact, she drove me to the wrong church so that I could miss the wedding. But it didn't work out. I blew her cover. Ended up at the wedding. Ended up running into him right as he was running out the side door to walk through the front door to go down the aisle. And so, yeah, I just complete utter devastation. At that time, like one of my most broken moments, and I've had a lot of broken moments. And as to the woman he married, yeah, she was a friend. Not in the beginning, but definitely now. One, actually, as it turns out, one of my best friends. But like in that season, she had become a friend. And here's the thing: when you're dealing with faith, and I am a believer in God, and I genuinely believe that He directs my path. And even though I said that I wasn't I wasn't as spiritually mature back then as I am today, and and I praise God for that, for the growth. I still loved God to the extent that I knew how to love God. And in the end, I genuinely believe that, hey, like if this is what was happening, this is what he was allowing it, then this was somehow for my best. And there was no one for me to be upset with. I just needed to deal with the emotions of it all. And so, yeah, again, so devastation. But yeah, no, they were both my friends. And, and it ended how it ended. And I'll be honest, like I'm so glad that it went down exactly the way it went down. Obviously, I would want to be spared the pain. That was a part of my process. I had to go through that so I can learn more about myself, so I can learn more about God, so that was just a part of my journey. But I'm 1000% happy that that they found each other, and that they were able to build a life together, and that God saved me and is still saving me, for the man that I'm supposed to marry. But one thing that I will say is that God did not fail me. Like He didn't. Like it is true. Like I did the whole laying prostrate and all that kind of stuff, but I did, like I feel like God, when it was inching toward the time of him actually getting married, I feel like God, he showed me like what was up. Like, like He talked to me in my dreams. Like I got it through other conversations. So by the time it was said and done, I was prepared for it. But the thing that I thought I heard was not what
So
I
this is
actually
where I
heard.
was going to get
So,
to.
yeah.
Are you sure you heard God say that? Or
In hindsight,
was
He
this
could.
you wanting what you wanted, and because you made the actions toward putting it in front of God and submit, did you get the confirmation? Because there's one thing we take something to God. Like I firmly believe in, like, when I need to make big decisions, not like, oh, do I eat pizza or a hamburger today? Not that, but like, what do I do next? What's my next steps? I take that to God, but I know I'm not getting, this is not like phone a friend and I'm getting an answer sometimes, but not often do I get an instantaneous answer. So did you allow the time for God to really talk to you? Or was it like, all right, God, and while I'm waiting on that response, let me just enjoy Him. And I'm going about. So, I mean,
I think that's
be honest with yourself too.
Oh,
yeah.
I 1000% can. But I just want to acknowledge, I think that's an excellent question, because I think it's a struggle point for, and obviously I can't speak for men. I don't know. I'm assuming, that happens.
I don't know what men do.
But for women, I feel like 1000% it is a struggle point for a lot of us. And I'll tell you why. So, well, let me do this. I'll answer your question first. So, did I talk to God about it first, or did I...
No, did you wait for God's response about it? Because you
did I wait for God's
talking.
response?
Yeah.
Did
so
you get in hindsight, in hindsight, but that's the thing about hindsight. Hindsight is always perfect. In hindsight, I'm gonna go with, well, clearly no. However, in the moment, and this, like I said, this is so many years ago. Like, so I'm going.
You vaguely remember.
Yeah,
right.
but in the moment, if you had asked me that in the moment, as I am sure other people did, like I'm sure I would have told you, yes, I've heard from, this, thus said the Lord. Like I've heard from.
And what was the thing? What was the thing? Like,
what thing?
Like, God was like, yeah, go for that.
Listen. I'm afraid to say what I believe I heard, because
go ahead,
I don't want anybody labeling me like as like some kind of psychosis.
No, go ahead. Like you was hearing voices.
For the sake of our demographic, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna be real. Like I really did. Like I really believe that I heard God tell me He was the one.
Really,
like, I felt like I was laying. I promise you, I was laying on the floor prostrate, crying and speaking in tongues, and like I felt like I heard a word, and I got up and was like, "Oh, glory to God!" Like, like the Lord has answered. God
co-signed who you wanted anyway, so it worked out. Yeah.
But here's the thing. I think that matters of the heart stuff like that is very complicated. It gets very, very gray. In that situation, we were already friends, right? You know, and so I think it's one thing if it's like, okay, you're meeting a stranger for the first time and you're going on a few dates, and you're thinking like, oh, okay, because you know it's a lot more intentional. It's like, okay, I've met this guy. I'm thinking that I like him. You know, God, give me an answer. Is this him? Is this, whatever? This is a situation where it's like, oh, like we've been friends forever. You know, so like you're like the behaviors that would lead to you having feelings a lot of times before you even realize that you have feelings have already taken place. And so you're already in a thing. Yeah. So your feelings are, so in that situation, my feelings were already invested. And so I'm not sure I had the spiritual maturity in that season to be able to discern my feelings from what God was saying. Yeah. You know, so like, I feel like I already, in my heart, I wanted it so badly, and it made sense. Like everything around it made so much sense. Like this, I wasn't just pulling something from the air.
Are y'all still friends?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. Go ahead. As you were.
Yeah. Well, but understandably, you gotta understand.
Because when she stutters. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, but it's neither here nor there because. Like the Lord has worked in a lot of different ways since that time. But I would say like the factors around it were such that it was just like, oh, like it just seemed like such a clear indicator. So like when we talk about asking God for signs or waiting for confirmation, when we use that kind of language, I was doing that. Like I was asking for signs. I was looking for confirmation. And in around every corner, like I would get some kind of confirming conduct or confirming behavior. And then I would walk away and be like, oh, to God be the glory, and despite what I was seeing in real time, and that's the gray area because that's what faith teaches, right? Faith teaches you like, hey, don't worry about the waves of the storm. Keep your eyes on Christ. And so for me in that season, I'm erroneously thinking that I'm doing that. So like it's like so you have all the and again there were people like in the environment like. Fueling the flames. They're like, yes, girl,
I have to offer this.
Loves you. What?
I have to offer this. So as women, for the most part, we're more emotionally in tune than we give men credit for, because I do think that they have some emotional intelligence. It might not be as high as certain women, but but we can sometimes let our emotions paint a picture that is not reality. And so when you have on the rose-colored glasses, you're going to continue to see roses when you're looking at a pile of shit. Like, let's just keep it a buck, right? True. So if I like you and I want to be with you, I'm not looking at what you like. I'm not focusing on what's not right. I'm focusing on what is. And I think a lot of times, especially when we're in that faith space, it really is a battle between your emotions and what is actually being presented to you. And I've done this too, because unlike you, where you've had the time where you thought you heard yes, I've been told no and did it anyway, only to be dragged and then twice and then find out like, no, one, God's will was going to be done regardless. And number two, what I want for me, because my emotions and because of what's happening in the environment around me is telling me, yeah, that's it. Like, yep, why not? I need you to be my homie, lover, friend. As a matter of fact, that is one of the things that I got very clear on going into this time of knowing that I want partnership again. You gotta be my best friend. And I mean my best friend. There's not even a thing that I don't want to tell you or feel like I can't tell you. So friendship all day, baby.
I am 1000% team friendship. I think that it is the best way to build a solid foundation. And that's what I would want my marriage to be based on. The most solid and stable foundation.
I got very clear, nah, sis, that's not it.
And you went forward anyway
because of my emotions.
What you wanted for you. And I think that that's really pivotal because even the Bible says it, like, you know, like our hearts are deceitfully wicked. And so, depending on, and let me just speak in terms of my season. So, in that season, like
Mm-hmm.
I said, I didn't have the spiritual maturity that I have in this season.
Yeah.
What I did have, though, was a lot of trauma, a lot of unhealed pain. And so, you know, and from my wounds, I was, you know, like I was having like all of these different experiences, and I'm seeing the world from the lens of that.
Yep.
And my prayers were shaped by that. Like you know, like it wasn't that I didn't have a relationship with God. I wasn't praying or anything like that. But I didn't even, at that time, I didn't even understand what it meant to love God for real.
Yeah.
Or what it meant to have a relationship with God for real, you know, because like I was still learning how to have relationships like just in my own circle. And so I think that that factors in. And so it was like very much so back then. It really was about like, okay, what I wanted. It was a
Mm-hmm.
very self-centered view. It's like this thing makes sense because of these factors, and I'm going to use scripture to to support
To
it.
support my
Yeah.
listen. I
Never,
will always have the receipts to back up my claims.
oh, 1000%.
Yeah. Yeah.
And never had, and I can tell you 1000%, I did not have that, like that whole like, okay, wait a minute, God, what do you want for me? You know, like, God, this is me and you in this together. And so, you know, like, and I know that you love me and that you want what's best for me. So let me step outside of my feelings and ask you point blank, like, what is it that you want for me? And is this it? I never said that prayer. I didn't even in that season, like, I didn't even understand, like I said, I didn't even understand what it meant to be loved by God, or even like really had a true understanding of his love, not just for all of us as, you know, mankind, but like God's love for me as Lashana Fountain. I didn't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And so to go to God like with like, oh, like, hey, like I want this guy, like, you know, da da da. And it's like, yeah, like it was all Lashana. It was all Lashana, and it was all wrong. Now, in the moment, I didn't see that. Today, I do see that. But what I would want to encourage whoever out there who's like, oh, like I found him, like, or I've heard, like, I think it's like what you said. I think that it's, you know, like, make that distinction. Is this coming from a place of like, okay, like this is what I've decided that I want because I've, you know, I've looked at the circumstances and I've inserted myself and it makes sense. I fit. It's like add me and like let's go. You know, I fit. Or is this really like, okay, God, I have I've come to you and you know 1000%, like, because you designed me, you created me. Even in my most flawed self, like, you know, like the whole parts of me. And so as the person or the entity or the being that created me, what's best for me? Is
Yeah.
this the guy, is this the man that, or the woman that you would have me to be with? You know, or am I operating, you know, out of something else? And that's not to say that God won't allow you to choose, because he does give us choice. But if you're choosing to go to God to ask, I think it's important, and I do encourage that we make sure that we're coming to him in the right space, because
Mm-hmm.
it's so easy to be deceived and think like, okay, like, oh yeah, God said, like I said, I woke
And
up, I got up from that floor, like, I'm about to
but
walk
I
out
also
the house.
think about the waiting season again. When your focus is on something outside of you and what you need to develop and what you need to cultivate, you are misled by your emotions. Because
1000%.
yeah, you can submit that prayer to God and be like, you know, who's for me? However, when you hyper focus on it, you're led by emotion. Like
Yeah.
it is because in that time for you know what was happening with you, if your journey was about working through the pain and healing that pain with God, maybe the person would have presented themselves sooner. But God will never give you his child to mishandle.
True. I
Period.
agree.
So if you are not ready, you will not get. And there's a lot of things that you have to learn to work out through yourself, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like, even me, my waiting season right now is about learning forgiveness. I'm
Mm-hmm.
fairly patient, but if I hold on to things that hurt or that don't feel right, I can't see the other things that are making its way to me, right? So it's not about waiting for that man to come. It's about Johanna developing, Johanna growing, Johanna being so seated in her relationship with God, her relationship with herself. Like, so many other things have to happen before that person comes to me. And I believe that while I'm working on me, they're working on them too. Because when God is done doing what he got to do here, he's definitely not going to drop me in the hands of someone who's ill-equipped to handle me. And so I feel like if I were to sit there and focus on, all right, but this is what I want, this is where he at, then I'm missing all the work that I need to do. And when you aren't focused on the right things, you delay even longer the process to getting what you want. Like, it's you don't get it when you're not ready to handle it. Just like with the lotto example, you're not going, like, and there are times where, because like you said, you have free will. All right, I'm gonna give it to you. Now you squandered it. Now you have another thing you got to heal from, because now all you're doing is replaying every moment in your life where you didn't focus on the things that you needed to learn. You got this blessing before it's time, thinking you were ready, squandered, and now you have to unpack what that caused, plus what you had going into it. So it's the same thing. So I'm hard-headed. No, actually, I'm really not. I think for me, it was a fear response, right? Because at the time, honestly, I don't think my self-esteem and my confidence in myself and what was supposed to unfold in front of me wasn't as strong as it is now. So I made a decision out of fear, and fear got me nowhere.
And it's funny that you're bringing this up, because it makes me think about, it's a conversation I was having with another friend of mine. I've actually had this conversation with a few friends of mine about, like, just the frustration in church culture, where when you talk to married women, men, pastors' wives, things like that, about, like, being, I call it chronically single, where you talk to them about being chronically single, and their advice is always, oh, use this time to work on yourself, like, don't worry about it. And then you get frustrated, because it's like, you're not gonna stop working on yourself just because you're married, so don't say that. And then two, how much work did you do on yourself before you got married? So, like, why is that your advice? But here's the thing. And so, and I say this because, like, people, like, in these conversations with my friends, like, we would get, like, there were times we would get, like, extremely frustrated. Like, I remember one conversation, and my friend, like, she was just pissed, cursing, like, that. Well, rightfully so. It's like, you're single, you're looking for love, and the advice is work on yourself. Again, as though you are going to be finished working on yourself once you find love. And so it doesn't seem like the best advice, especially when you're looking for, you're looking to be consoled, probably more, and encouraged more than anything else. But here's the thing. The reason it's excellent advice, and I realize that now, and everybody that I've had this conversation with now is gonna, like, really, like, hate me, but it really is the best advice. Why? Because what else are you gonna do? You're in the middle. You're in process. Like, it's like, yes, you want this thing, whatever the promise is. Like, but for purposes of this conversation, we're saying, like, yes, like, you want marriage, but you're just not there yet. So what are you gonna do? Sit and sulk and whatever? Like, that's not productive. So the best thing to do is to work on yourself. Like, honor the process by doing the work.
No, I agree, because you also have to understand. You want partnership, but you don't realize, if you're not solid in you, you're taking on a whole other person who has a whole bunch of other things.
1,000%.
Because I've been married before and divorced, and I can tell you that if you're not clear on you, and then you get into marriage, it only comes with its own set of problems. Like, married folks are telling you that because they know what it's like to be in it, and you can get lost, especially as the wife. You become focused on making this relationship be the best that it can be, creating a life the best way it can, and then you can get lost. I'm sure it's the same when you become parents or things like that. Like, the roles that you take on can push you further and further away from you and God
Mm-hmm.
if you keep it a buck, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really to say, nah, like, you know what? Let me enjoy this time. Let me enjoy me. Let me enjoy the fact that there is no kid screaming in a crib next to me or some person trying to put their cold feet on me. Like, let me just get up when I want to, eat or not when I feel like
I
it, and not take on
it
others.
is the best.
Yeah.
But I hated that advice before.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah,
Like, I was just
yeah.
like, like the church. I'm like, yeah, like any cancer patient, you know, any like whatever, like you're like they're quick, like, oh, let's pray, let's do whatever. And I always felt like, you know, but when it comes to being single and, you know, and believing, like, let's say, because we were talking about being made a promise, maybe it's not a promise of someone specific, but just that you've been promised marriage, period. And so, like, when you come back to, like, you know, to the church or to elders or just people, trusted spiritual advisors, and they are saying to you again, like, they're saying to you stuff like, oh, like, you know, just enjoy being single, like, oh, like when you have a house full of kids and all this kind of stuff, like, you're gonna be running for a closet. Like, when they say those kind of things to you, when you are really feeling the burden of or the perceived burden of being single, it does not feel good. It did not feel good. I had to go through some things before I was able to really appreciate what they were really saying, even if they didn't say it in the best way. And what they were saying is exactly what you just said. It's like, hey, like, it's actually, oh, dare I say it? Is it a gift? But take advantage. Like, listen, God has given us all like different opportunities, different gifts. He's not blind to the things that we say we desire, and obviously he's not blind to the things that he promised us. But if we find ourselves in this waiting period, the best thing you can do is to work on yourself. Like, let that season manifest what it was intended to manifest, because if you truly trust in the God who made the promise, surely you must trust also in his process and his timing. And if you don't, then you really need to go back and really analyze, like, okay, do you really trust in the God you serve? You know, is God really your God, or is the promise the God? Because if the promise is the God, then you got like a whole other kind of, you know, situation happening that, you know, that needs to be addressed. And so, like, I had to learn, like, it took a minute for me to be able to appreciate that. And so now I'm just kind of like, okay, I see the benefit. Does that mean that I do it or do it well? Well, that's another conversation. Now I'm on my own journey. You know, like,
Lord knows it.
As we go through this season, you will see, like, I have high and low moments, but for the first time in my life, I can genuinely say it's not so bad being single.
Ooh.
It's
and
not.
I think honestly, I think that's a good stopping point.
Okay.
I think the moral of the story is, you are waiting on relationship. You are waiting on that person that you want to take this life journey with, and you want to do it God's way. But it's important that in the waiting season, until that person gets there, you enjoy your singleness. Mm-hmm. So I think that wraps up our very first episode of the While I'm Waiting podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a pleasure to have you. And remember, if he gave you the promise, he'll give you the process. 1000%. Later.
Bye.